Hello, hello, my fellow gamers. This is Grunch, and I am back with another Gatecrash Draft. Still pre-release. Still a pre-release draft, so this is going to be Swiss again. Not really sure why they only let you play Swiss drafts, the pre-release, but, I mean, whatever. That's what you got to play, that's what you got to play, right? This is my second draft of the format. First one we drafted a sweet Boros deck. So we'll see where this one takes us. Alright, so here the cards immediately stand out to me. Night Veil Spectre, again, I don't want to be Dimir, so not exciting. Cinder Elemental, Shamble Shark, Madcap Skills, and Syndicatize are kind of the only cards I would consider first picking out of this pack, and of those it's pretty clear Cinder Elemental is the most powerful. I'm willing to entertain the notion that the format is more aggressive than it might have seemed originally, and so either the Syndicatize or Shamble Shark is actually a better pick here. It's probably not Shamble Shark because that kind of commits you immediately to two colors, whereas the Cinder Elemental is good in both of the guilds that it is applicable to, and it's actually something you might want to consider splashing. So I still think it's Syndicatize, even thinking the format's a little more aggressive than I did initially. But yeah, Cinder Elementals is pretty sweet. It's a pretty sweet one. Just don't like that Night Veil Spectre, though. Not a fan of that guy. Alright, so next pack we have the Blue Primordial, who casts a spell out of their graveyard. The Bane Alley Broker, Undercity Informer, Vizkopa Guildmage, Massive Raid, Death's Approach, Ruination Worm. Not actually sure what sort of the optimal pick out of this pack is. I mean, Massive Raid stays on color and is pretty good. But both of the uncommon, actually, excuse me, all three of the uncommon creatures in this pack are pretty powerful as well. And the Blue Primordial is sort of one of the few blue cards that I think might be worth going that direction to enable. But I'm still just going to pick the Massive Raid. You know, that gives me two red removal / reach effects to start off the draft, and I'm happy to go into either Gruul or Boros starting off this way. So, not really passing anything terribly exciting for either of those decks as well, so I'm hoping that the players to my left are kind of considering going out of them. Alright, so here we have Smog Elemental, Guardian of the Gateless, Zerta Swine, Angelic Edict, and Devour Flesh as kind of the top-notch cards here. I would not fault anyone for picking any of those out of here. I think I'm going to pick the Zerta Swine. It's not actually the most powerful card in the pack. I actually think that actually all four of the Orzhov cards that I mentioned are probably slightly more powerful. But I really like Zerta Swine, and if you consider the signal we've already sent, plus the signal we're going to be sending out of this pack, I mean, we've shipped two good Orzhov picks already, and this pack's going to be flooded with Orzhov, so we're kind of setting up the next couple players down the line in the draft to want Orzhov. And as long as the Gruul keeps flowing, I'm happy to stay on target, as Red 5 would say. Or is that Red Leader? Now this is embarrassing. I don't know my Star Wars trivia. Alright, so this pack has not much for the Gruul or Boros decks. There is an Assault Griffin or a Boros Guildgate, I suppose Adaptive Snapjaw. But there's Dinrova Horror, Grizzly Spectacle, Basilica Screecher, and Knight of Obligation, all being awesome cards for those decks. I decided to hedge here and take the Grizzly Spectacle, just in case, should I have been mistaken in going that aggressively for Gruul. I want to not be out. I mean, being out like an Adaptive Snapjaw or an Assault Griffin out of your Boros or Gruul deck is not the end of the world, but you know, if you're out too many early picks for your Orzhov deck that you end up forced into playing. That's, Grizzly Spectacle in particular is one of those cards that is just really tough to replace. So we'll just have to see where the pack goes from here. Alright, so now we kind of get the sense that maybe I was in the right choice. They have Slaughterhorn or Zertaswine, both of which are just premium Blood Rush creatures, just early game beaters. There's also Frilled Oculus, Totally Lost, Dimir Key Rune, Shadow Slice. Like, there are some other playables here, but the best card I think is still Zertaswine. It's possible Slaughterhorn is a better card. I don't want to say that because Zertaswine is more powerful. Like, it's a much bigger body. It's a bigger Blood Rush effect, but like the mana cost difference is significant. But the Zertaswine would send a Gruul open signal, whereas the Slaughterhorn, if someone wants to draft Simic down from me, I'm much happier with that than them thinking they should be playing Gruul. So I'm gonna stay on signal. So this pack had Signal the Clans, Greenside Watcher, Burst of Strength, Dimir Charm, Undercity Informer, Boros Guildgate, Corpse Blockade. I'm going to pick the Greenside Watcher. I'm not actually sure how good it is in the Gruul deck, but Signal the Clans just strikes me as, you always get, like, I suppose you can argue there's a fair amount of redundancy between your Blood Rush effects, so you're like always going to get a Blood Rush guy, but I'd rather just get the early creature to get on the board. And if I can get a couple of Guild Gates, I mean, he can offer the mana. I was actually aware at this point of the Greenside Watcher, Verdant Haven, Guild Gates, sort of 5-color green deck that exists. But I wasn't super interested in trying to draft that. Of course. Then I get another Greenside Watcher, so it's possible this draft I could have tried for the crazy 5-color deck. But it's not like there's anything wrong with having a Goblin Piker and sometimes Arbor Elf in your Gruul deck. So, the other cards here in this next pack were Hydroform, Totally Lost, Night Watch, and Armored Transport for very marginal guys. Pretty weak pack. Probably got lucky to have a halfway decent playable in it still for me. But, yeah, I mean, we're shaping up pretty well here, right? We got 2 removal spells, 2 large beaters and / Blood Rush guys, a couple of early beaters. So now there's a Simic Charm, Primal Visitation, Leyline Phantom, which is not good, Horror of the Dim, and a Riot Gear, which I'm going to end up picking the Riot Gear here. It's possible that I should be picking the Simic Charm. I don't really like the idea of splashing, but the power level difference between Simic Charm and Riot Gear is significant. But regardless, I ended up picking the Riot Gear here. It's still perfectly playable. It's not a bad card. It's not super exciting, but I think it's probably better in Boros just because you have, your creatures are a little bit smaller overall, but it's still fine here. So in this pack, I wheeled the Shamble Shark. Which made me think, between the Simic Charm I just saw and this now Shamble Shark, like, is there just not a Simic draft at this table? But I'm going to pick Millennial Gargoyle. It's just, I don't know. You're either looking at like a 3-color deck versus like possibly having to abandon. I guess I ended up picking the Shamble Shark, excuse me. Millennial Gargoyle is just not a card I want to have to play. So, but then we do get a Ruination Worm back, so I felt like I was in the right deck at this point. Like, when you're getting, this late into the pack, sort of decent top-end creatures, that's kind of a sign that you're in the right guild for the seat that you're in drafting. Still a Bane Alley Broker and an Undercity Informer here. Kind of wonder what's going on with... There's just nobody drafting Dimir in this table? I don't know. So here we have a Predator's Rapport, or stuff we're not going to play. So I'll take the Predator's Rapport, sideboard card for, I'm not even sure what. I guess you could use it to, if you end up with kind of a slower Gruul deck and you are getting extorted out, you could gain like 9 life of Zertaswine. It's not exciting. So there's Nothing in us for this pack. I'm going to cut off the Syndicate Enforcer, because of the 3 spells, I think that's the one I'd least like to play against. Somebody who just has a whole ton of extort effects. So we're going to cut that off. Now we have an Armored Transport versus a Naturalize. So, like, the most marginal of creatures versus the, ubiquitous sideboard card. I think I'd rather have the marginal creature just in case I end up short on playables. It's a thing that can happen. Still nothing for us. Just kind of waiting on pack 2 to begin. I actually don't think Corpse Blockade is that bad. Like, I don't think it's something that should be going last in the pack, but, hey, whatever. I guess nobody wants it. Alright, so I opened Blind Obedience, which is unfortunate. But I also opened Mugging, Arrows of Justice, Zerta Swine. Were we in a different deck? Active Treason, Simic, Key Rune, and Boros Elite. But I'm just going to take the Mugging. Early removal. I've been nothing but happy with Mugging. And I already have 2 Zerta Swines and a Ruination Worm. Like, I already have a decent amount of high-end guys. So, even though Zerta Swine, I should say just the Blood Rush creatures in general, like the high-end Blood Rush guys, don't actually get worse as you add more of them. It's weird. Like, most, normal draft formats, you wouldn't want to be, stacking up a whole bunch of 5-drops. But because your 5-drops here are also just sweet combat tricks, you can afford to play more of them than you would naturally be able to. Which is a pretty interesting effect. It means that, mid-games against the Gruul decks are harder because they have a lot more just live top decks with just big animals to bust the game open. But yeah, Mugging. It's definitely better than Arrows of Justice, at least in this deck. So now here, I get kind of lucky. I got a Scar Guildmage. He's sweet. I think all the Guildmages are sweet, but this guy in particular. The interaction between Trample and Blood Rush is just so strong that the Guildmage for Gruul is... I don't want to say the best, because I haven't had enough chance to play with Truefire, or not Truefire Paladin, Sunhome Guildmage, but Scarg is at worst second. There's also a Slaughterhorn here, a Sky Knight Legionnaire for the lucky Boros player, and then a whole bunch of nothing. Big whole bunch of nothing. This is the kind of pack you really would not want to have opened in Seal deck. Although, I didn't get to see what the rare was, so, could have been some crazy busted bomb. You never know. But, yeah, we're definitely not wheeling anything out of this pack. Actually, I think about 3 seats down from us, somebody's going to look at this pack and go, what a pile. So here, there's a Slaughterhorn, an Ember Beast, Daring Skyjack, Frilled Oculus, Shadow Slice, and, oh yeah, a Fathom Mage. Lucky Simic player. Whoever is playing Simic within a few seats of me. I still get Slaughterhorn. It's not a bad card by any means. Blood Rush is sweet. Warpath Ghoul is... I don't want to say below the power level of what you would play in this format. Like, you would still cast it if it were just Warpath Ghoul. But the fact that it's half Warpath Ghoul, half pretty much Giant Growth means it's just an awesome card. I think this is a fairly obvious pick. Ember Beast is much more of a Boros card where you have all the haste guys to make sure that even if nothing else is alive on the board, you can haste into it. Whereas Gruul has a lot more situations where you just have a couple of creatures on the board and a single removal spell could turn off an Ember Beast. So next pack, Lucky Grunch gets another Guildmage. So now we are in one of those I have 2 of my Guildmage decks situations. So we're looking for looking to do pretty well in this draft. I mean, granted, we're still, halfway into pack 2, but I'm sort of already quite happy with my deck. And anytime you get 2 of your guild's relevant Guildmage, you should be, thinking, man, I'm kind of getting lucky on this one. It's kind of a hookup. It's also Syndicatize, Ruination Worm, Sage's Rodenizen, Skullcrack, Death's Approach. I've actually seen a lot of Death's Approaches this draft. I don't remember the total, but I want to say it was like 5 or 6 Death's Approaches. Like somebody could have just gotten there on a mill deck. I don't think they did, but they could have. So, here we have another Xertus wine. Oh, baby, baby. There's also Enter the Infinite, which, I won't lie to you. If that card was worth, like, 20 tickets, I'd probably have just picked it. Obviously, if this was the Pro Tour, it's completely incorrect. Grand Prix of a Day 2, PTQ Top 8, something like that. So, in an effort to sort of keep it a sort of a pure competitive draft and not a value draft, so to speak, I'm going to stick with the Xertus wine. Enter the Infinite is pretty sweet. I would have liked to have gotten that, but there's Simic Guildmage, or not Simic Guildmage, Simic Guildgate, which I note that I have the Greenside Watchers, and you know it's on color guild. You know, it taps for green, so it's one of my 2 colors, and it would let me get some mana ramp, but Xertus Wine's just too good to pass up. So here we have a choice between second Massive Raid, Disciple of the Old Ways, Frenzied Tilling, which I won't play, or Ripscale Predator, which I also don't want to play. It's pretty clearly Disciple of the Old Ways. Massive Raid is fine, but not as important as just having early drops to get on the board. And when you're in Gruul, Disciple's actually pretty decent. Like, First Strike combines with Blood Rush to make her just very difficult to block in the mid game, and I mean First Strike just bricks a lot of creatures in general. So, yeah, I mean there weren't really any choices to be made here unless you are just deeply in love with massive raiding people. Next up, an Ember Beast, because I don't want a second Predator's Rapport, sadly. There's still an Angelic Edict in this pack, so it seems like there's always good Orzhov cards. Like, just every pack has good Orzhov cards. Maybe it's just perception bias for me, but there's also Dimir Guildgate, which I briefly considered to try to power up those Greenside Watchers, but I think the boat has shipped on drafting the 5-color ramp deck, so to speak. The 5-color green, Greenside Watcher, Verdant Haven, Prismatic Prism, Guildgates, and then whatever sweet spells you can find. Like, you don't want to be that deck at this point in the draft. So here, it's Adaptive Snapjaw, Towering Thunderfist, Spire Tracer. There's an Orzhov Guildgate, Dutiful Thrall, Profane, Purge Profane. These are all playable. Spire Tracer is not the best, but nah, he's just kind of mopey. But some of those 5-drops, like I already have Xertus Wines, and neither of these 2 5-drops even comes close to competing with Xertus Wine. And I'm not at the point yet where I want to draft an Orzhov Guildgate for my Gruul deck for the 2 Greenside Watchers, so I guess Spire Tracer. I mean, if you get some Madcap skills. So, anyway, a 4th Xertus Wine has now wheeled. So that's pretty filthy. Of note, Dutiful Thrall also wheeled. See? Always a good Orzhov pick. Just always a good Orzhov pick. Every pack. Foil Island. I don't know what to say about this. What can I say? I like my bacon. Bacon tastes good. Pork chops taste good. 10 points if you know what movie that's from. Alright, I'll give you a hint. It was said by... Ready? John Travolta. It was said by John Travolta. Bacon tastes good. Pork chops taste good. Come on, guys. Come on. It's a great movie. Classic. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm talking about movies to fill up the end of the pack where there's no actual decisions to be made. And I'm just taking the card that I would least like to play against out of each pack. Here being a mind's eye Drake because, well, it flies, and I ain't having flyers. But, yeah. Bacon tastes good. Pork chop tastes good. Hey, look, another Ruination Worm. Alright, I'll play it. I mean, it's expensive, but if I can get a Key Rune, and I already got these 2 Greenside Watchers, so if I can get some Guild Gates and a Key Rune, I mean, and 6 mana is actually not that much. Like, it's probably out of the realm of what you'd want to be doing against a Boros deck, but it's fine against most of the format. Okay, it was John Travolta, and he's sitting across the table from Samuel L. Jackson. And they're talking about why Sammy L. doesn't eat pork. If you haven't gotten this movie reference yet, you need to stop watching this video. You need to go Google bacon, pork chops, John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson. And then the movie that you haven't seen that you need to see, go watch it. And then thank me later. Anyway, this pack is kind of buns. No real early picks for our Gruul deck. So I'm going to grab my Guildgate. I kind of always like to have like 1 or 2 of my on-color Guildgates. Like, if you can play like 2 Guildgates and 15 basics instead of 17 basics, like it actually reduces your mulligans quite a bit. Stabilizes your mana base. Plus I have 2 Greenside Watchers, so I mean, it's fairly obvious. There's actually nothing else in the pack that I would really even consider playing in my deck. I guess there's a Bomber Core, but Battalion is just so much harder for Gruul to get online than for Boros. Actually, it's kind of funny, the way the sort of the off guild mechanics, sort of, you have your white cards with Extort are still pretty sweet in Boros, and your red cards with Blood Rush are pretty sweet in Boros. So like the Boros deck gets effective use out of all 3 of the mechanics along the red and white cards, and that's not true of most of the other guilds in this set. So it's, I don't know. I don't mean to just sit here and extol the virtues of the Boros. Anyway, there's a Gruul Key Rune versus a Pit Fight versus a Disciple of the Old Ways. And then some cards I'm not going to play. I like Gruul Key Rune, especially when I got 4 Zerta Swines at 5 mana. If I can go like a Grizzly Bear into a Key Rune into a Zerta Swine, that means that on turn 4 I actually have, quite a bit of power. Like, effectively 10 power on the board. And that's assuming that the Grizzly Bear isn't the Guild Mage. So, I like that. I also think the Gruul Key Rune is actually the best Key Rune in the set. Again, just because Trample is so fantastic with Blood Rush. And also because the Gruul are the color, I don't want to say most likely to have a lot of top end, but just because of the way Blood Rush works, you're sort of allowed to play a lot more top end, which in turn makes having additional mana and faster mana a little more useful there. So here, I could take the green Primordial. Yeah, that's not really a thing. But there's a Slaughterhorn for us. Slaughterhorn is sweet. But note, Executioner Swing and Orzhov Charm. There's just like always a good Orzhov pick. Just always. Also Balustrade Spy. And Smite. I'm starting to suspect that the Orzhov, like black and white, are just the deepest colors in the set. Like there's just, like even if there's an Orzhov player immediately to your right, you're probably still getting playables out of every pick in every pack. I don't even know what this Sylvan Primordial, what does he even do? All I know is he's 7 mana, and he has Reach instead of Trample, which is just like, what? Why do you... No. Reach is not something you want on a 7 mana guy. Reach is something you want on a 2, 3, 4 mana guy. Outside chance of a 5 mana guy. You don't want 7 mana. You want Reach. You want Trample or Haste. Come on. Yeah, so we've got 1,000 Lashes, Boros Key Rune. I'm going to pick up another Disciple of the Old Ways. Just finish filling out my mana curve. Note, though, if you will, 1,000 Lashes. Yet again, arguably the best card in the pack is an Orzhov card. Also, Midnight Recovery, which is one of those cards that I think is just like there's not many Cipher spells that are sort of actively good on their own, but Midnight Recovery is one of those cards that like, you know, it can just force the game into a state where your opponent has to have removal for your Cipher guy, or he can never make any advancement on the board, and from there things just spiral out of control. Of course, it's not as good as 1,000 Lashes, because I mean, come on, Pillory of the Sleepless, but even better, because you get, instead of Pacifism, it's Arrest. Like, so here I get a Pit Fight. There's also a Skinbrand Goblin and a Wasteland Viper. I'm not 100% sure which is better, but when in doubt, I tend to default to removal. Look again, though. Kingpin's Pet, and Vizkopa Confessor, and Syndicate Enforcer. There's still 3 Extort creatures in this pack. Why are there so many Extort creatures? What is going on with the print runs and Orzhov always seeming like the nuts to me? Maybe I'm just overrating the cards, but I don't think so. I think those cards are pretty good. They just seem to always be around. I don't know. Maybe everybody and their mother was fighting for Boros this draft. I didn't see much white at all. Hooray! Homing Lightning. Of note, also Pit Fight, also Kingpin's Pet, also Active Treason. Verdant Haven, if you were one of those crazy people that wants to draft the green ramp deck, but yeah, at this point it's obviously Homing Lightning for us. Still a Kingpin's Pet, I'm just saying. I'm not saying that I would have gotten better cards if I'd have been drafting Orzhov this draft, but I mean, like, every single time you could be drafting an Orzhov card. And you might not be wrong to do so. Not sure what that says about the format, except that those are some pretty deep colors. Bacon tastes good. Pork chops taste good. Alright, so this choice is between a Bomber Core or an off-color Guildgate for my Greenside Watchers. I'm actually going to pick up the Guildgate just because, I mean, you can see above in the cards I have picked, and, you know, you subtract the Guildgate from the count, and I'm on 23 playables, which means I don't need the Bomber Core, and it wouldn't actually replace either the Armored Transport or the Spire Tracer, kind of the 2 cards I'd like to get rid of. So if it's not going to replace any of the 2 playables I'd like to get rid of, then I'll instead pick the card that would go in my deck. So, yeah. Also Midnight Recovery and Basilica Screecher, because there's got to be good Orzhov cards there. So here, look, Orzhov Keyrune and Executioner Swing, and the pack is just completely 100% blank for me. It doesn't really even matter what I take out of this pack unless I feel like, you know, cutting off something, but, you know, I guess I cut off the Executioner Swing just because, I mean, it can kill my stuff, but they're still getting an Orzhov Keyrune. It's one of the better Keyrunes, like, because of the way Extort adds mana to all your spells, like, the Orzhov deck is probably the deck that, after the Gruul, want extra mana the most, so, you know, plus a 1/4 lifelinker is arguably just the best creature on all the Keyrunes. Foundry Street Denizen, Primal Visitation, or nothing. It's basically nothing or nothing, let's be honest. I'm not going to play either one of those over any of my cards in my deck currently. So, bacon tastes good. Pork chops taste good. Go watch that movie. I think I'm going to watch that movie after I get done making this video. Yeah, still nothing. Just not wheeling anything out of this pack, which is fine. There wasn't much to have wheeled. Like, when we saw our packs, we were sort of taking the one playable for us in each position. And there's no way we were going to wheel, like, pit fights and stuff. So, I'm going to Yeah, I don't even care about any of these cards. I guess I should have picked Sky Games just because of all the cards there. It's the one that might beat me, but I guess there's a Riot Gear and a Hindervines in this pack, but I'm just going to take the Riot Gear, I guess. Yeah, it's fine. I think actually maybe I should have taken the Balustrade Spy, but it really doesn't matter at this point. These are largely irrelevant picks. I've already got my playset of Zertus Wines, some sweet cards, whatever. You know, double Guild Mage kind of thing. You know, several other early beaters in the 2-drop spot, several removal spells. And this is a pretty solid deck. I was pretty happy with my deck at this point, I think. If you expect to get better decks than this, then you are probably playing against players who are far below your skill level. There's just no real justification that you should be able to come up with a better deck than this amid players of similar skill level. Got a Verdant Haven last, which made me think, you know, if that card can wheel, then just like nobody knows about that Greenside Watcher Verdant Haven thing. I mean, everybody knows about it now because of Travis Wu's article, but you know, at the time I was doing this during the pre-release, I had been told about the interaction, but I wasn't sort of a believer at that point. So we're going to rebuild the deck the way we had it from the previous screen, where I have my 23 picked out. Probably get down to my first 21 or 22, and then see what I want for my last playable, based on kind of what is already in the deck, where my spots are at in the curve are weakest or best. Yeah, 21. And it's a question of, you know, do I want 18 land? Do I want armored transport? I consider briefly the Verdant Haven, but with 2 Slaughterhorns and an Ember Beast, I actually kind of, also a Key Rune, like I have stuff to do on 3, and ramping to 5 is solid, but like, you know, it doesn't, you're mana flooding, so if you're not getting fixing out of it, which I don't need it for fixing, it's not that great. So I end up deciding, I think, on Riot Gear and Spire Tracer. Spire Tracer just because it lets you, it's hard to block, which means that if you're in a racing situation, you can just blood rush onto it, and that's pretty decent reach. I do add in the Orzhov Guild Gate just to power up my Greenside Watchers. I actually never got to do that in the actual games of the draft. Like, I never got to untap a Guild Gate with my Greenside Watcher. I never drew both a Guild Gate and a Greenside Watcher, but I think if you want to do that, like if you're trying to build sort of that archetype, so to speak, you're going to need more than 2 of each. You probably want like 4 or 5 of each, and at least 2 to 3 Verdant Havens, Prophetic Prisms, and then every removal spell and gigantic thing you can find. So yeah, I mean, there's the deck. It's pretty happy with this deck. There weren't any picks that I would have made differently in retrospect. I actually think this was kind of just a clear-cut, sort of just an easy case for your Gruul deck. You know, 2 Guild Mages and all the bacon you could want. So, you know. Oh, I guess I played the Armored Transport over the Spire Tracer. I feel like I sideboarded that back the other way every match that I played. Well, both of the matches that I played, because I 2-0'd and then split. But, yeah, so that was my second Gatecrash Draft. Thanks for watching, guys.